Why can a Muslim man have 4 wives?
Polygyny, a man having multiple wives, is a sensitive and complex topic in Islam. Here is a more detailed explanation. In the Quran, polygyny is addressed in Surah 4, verse 3, which states that men are permitted to marry up to 4 wives, provided they can treat them equally in terms of provision, love, and care. The permission is framed as conditional and restricted. Some of the key reasons cited by Islamic scholars for allowing limited polygyny include social welfare rationale. In 7th century Arabia, men were scarce due to frequent wars and violence. This left many widows and orphans vulnerable. Polygyny allowed widows to be absorbed into new family units and children to be cared for. Procreation rationale. In agrarian societies with high mortality rates, polygyny enabled increasing the number of offspring. Male desires rationale. The Quran acknowledges the natural male desire for multiple partners, but regulates it under an ethical framework. However, Islam also emphasizes monogamy as the cultural ideal. The Prophet Muhammad remained monogamous for most of his life. The Quran stresses that maintaining justice and equality between multiple wives is extremely difficult. Critics argue that modern concepts of human rights make polygyny unethical as it can enable gender inequality, jealousy, and favoritism. Many Muslim nations have banned or restricted it. Overall, there is recognition that polygyny is not an obligation or recommendation for all Muslim men today.
There are still some countries where polygyny, man having multiple wives, up to 4, is legally practiced by a minority of Muslims, though it is becoming increasingly rare and restricted. Some examples of countries where polygyny is currently permitted.
Saudi Arabia. Polygyny is legal, but conditional permission from a court is required for a man to take additional wives beyond the first. United Arab Emirates. Polygyny is legal and recognized, though it requires judicial approval as well as consent from the existing wives. Malaysia. Polygyny is legal for Muslims only and requires obtaining permission from an Islamic court and meeting strict conditions. Indonesia. Polygyny is legal for Muslims with restrictions and requirements like court permission and consent from existing spouses. Iran. Polygyny is legal for men but strictly regulated, requiring court approval and consent from the first wife. Morocco. Polygyny used to be widely accepted, but legal reforms in 2004 made it much harder to practice by requiring justification and consent. However, even in these countries where it remains legal in principle, polygyny is becoming increasingly rare in practice, especially among the educated urban population. The trends lean towards monogamy becoming the norm. There are no credible statistics on how many Muslim men currently have 4 wives globally, but it is a small minority, persisting mainly in some very conservative rural areas of a few countries.